People like you should be in jail, not in a private bank lounge." The words did not fall by accident. They landed like a verdict, sharp enough to silence the marble room. The bank manager stood tall behind the counter, his voice laced with contempt, his finger already hovering near the phone. Around them, the air shifted. Some clients looked away, pretending not to hear. Others leaned in, their curiosity hungry for a scene. And at the center of it all stood a black woman in a vivid orange suit, calm as stone, as if she had rehearsed this humiliation her entire life. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we are glad you are here. Now, back to her. The bank was quiet moments earlier, the kind of sterile quiet meant to assure wealthy clients their money was safe. But now the silence felt hostile, thick with accusation. She had walked in alone, carrying nothing more than a slim leather folio, requesting to access her account. No entourage, no brand-name jewelry, no guard to validate her presence. That choice was intentional. She came to test the room, to test its people. The manager's words cut deeper than protocol. His tone carried history, the unspoken idea that wealth had a skin color, a dress code, a mold she did not fit. Two tellers exchanged glances and smirked. One whispered, "Fraud. Happens all the time." Another pressed a discreet button under the desk, the kind of button meant for emergencies, but used here to challenge her very existence. She did not move. She did not flinch. She had learned long ago that silence, when held steady, can be louder than shouting. The quiet confidence in her posture unsettled the room more than any argument would have. A man in a gray suit, seated nearby, muttered just loud enough, "This is about race. Everyone can see it." His phone rose slowly, its red record light glowing like a warning flare. The bank manager noticed, his face tightening, but he doubled down. "Security is on the way, and if you do not step out now, the police will be here in minutes. We are not fooled by stolen cards and made-up names." Gasps rustled across the lounge. A woman clutched her handbag tighter. A young couple glanced nervously between the woman in orange and the manager. The atmosphere was no longer business as usual. It was a trial, and she had been declared guilty before a single fact was checked. Still, she remained steady. Her gaze did not falter, her silence did not waver. And in that silence, the story had only begun. The call was made. The bank manager's finger stabbed the keypad with a fury that had less to do with fraud and more to do with control. His voice carried across the lounge as he spoke into the receiver. "This is Summit Bank. We have a black woman attempting to access fraudulent accounts. I need police dispatched immediately." The words were deliberate. He did not say customer. He did not say client. He chose race first, accusation second. It was not a report. It was an indictment. The marble floor seemed to echo louder than usual as a hush fell over the room. A woman in pearls clutched her husband's arm, whispering, "Dangerous." A young teller snickered under his breath, adding fuel to the fire. "She does not even look like she belongs here. Probably a scam." At the far end, a college-aged man lowered his laptop and pulled out his phone. "This is wrong," he muttered, hitting record. His voice trembled but carried. The red circle blinked bright, capturing the scene. The bank manager snapped at him instantly. "Turn that off, or you will be removed too." The woman in orange did not move. She placed her folio neatly on the counter and folded her hands. The stillness of her body made the chaos around her feel louder. She had been here before. Different city, different faces, same judgment. One of the junior bankers stepped forward, arms crossed. "You think a platinum card makes you a millionaire? Anyone can fake that." He raised his chin high as if performing for an audience. Behind him, a guard in a navy blazer approached slowly, his badge reflecting under the chandelier light. The whispers grew. "She stole that card." "It is not her name. Call the police faster." The room had shifted from quiet suspicion to a mob's hum, each voice layering on her guilt without evidence. The manager slammed the receiver down. "Police are on their way, and until they arrive, you are trespassing in this lounge." He pointed at the door with a sharp finger. "Out, now." Gasps traveled across the room like a wave. The college kid shook his head, voice rising. "She showed her ID. You just do not like what she looks like." Another woman, middle-aged with a stroller, whispered, "This is not policy. This is profiling." The guard took a step closer. The space shrank. The tension thickened. And yet, she remained seated, her calm a blade cutting through their noise. Her silence was not weakness. It was patience. And patience, in this room, was about to turn into power. The guard's shoes tapped against the marble as he advanced. Every step sounded like a drumbeat of authority. His voice was clipped, mechanical, as if he had rehearsed it 100 times. "Ma'am, you need to hand over your identification again and step outside with me until police arrive." The bank manager folded his arms, his lips curling into a smirk. "Do not waste your time with her. That ID is counterfeit. I guarantee it. She is playing all of us." His tone carried enough confidence to infect the room. Several customers nodded slowly, as though prejudice itself had convinced them more than facts ever could. The woman in orange raised her eyes, calm and measured. She did not hand over her ID. She did not defend herself. Instead, she asked one question, her voice steady enough to slice through the chatter. "What makes you so certain that I do not belong here?" The room froze. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the junior banker scoffed, filling the silence. "Because you walked in alone. Because you are not dressed like wealth. Real clients do not look like you." His words stung the air. A woman seated by the espresso bar gasped audibly. A young Latino father with a toddler whispered, "This is racism, plain and simple." He pulled out his phone and raised it high enough for the lens to catch every face. The bank manager's voice cracked louder. "Enough of this spectacle. Security, detain her now. We cannot let this escalate." He pointed again at the woman as though his finger alone could erase her presence. The guard reached for her folio on the counter. The leather cover slid beneath his hand, but she placed her palm gently on top of it, stopping him without force. Her touch was light, but her gaze was unshakable. "Do not touch what is mine," she said, her voice low yet commanding. A silence followed, heavier than any shout. The guard hesitated. His training had not prepared him for a target who radiated more authority sitting still than he did standing in uniform. Then, from the corner, the college student spoke again, louder this time. "You cannot just take her things. She has rights." His phone captured the guard's hesitation, the bank manager's growing rage, the room's divided conscience. The woman in orange did not smile. She did not blink. She simply let the tension expand until the whole lounge felt like a courtroom. And as the guard's hand hovered, uncertain, she prepared to speak words that would shift the balance of power forever. The woman in orange finally broke her silence. Her voice was even, almost quiet, but the weight of it filled the room. "I will not move because intimidation is not policy. You can point, you can shout, you can accuse, but facts will not change." The bank manager's face flushed red. He slammed a palm on the counter so hard the sound snapped through the air like a gavel. "This is not about intimidation. This is about protecting real clients from imposters like you." He turned sharply to the guard. "Take her outside now. Police will deal with her when they arrive." The guard reached again, more forcefully this time. The woman leaned back just slightly, unshaken. "Touch me, and you will regret it," she said, her eyes locking with his. The words were not shouted, but they carried a steel edge. The guard froze, uncertain whether to obey the manager or heed the calm authority radiating from the very person he was ordered to remove. Whispers filled the lounge like wildfire. A woman in a navy suit muttered, "She has not raised her voice once, and yet she seems more composed than any of them." A young man near the coffee machine whispered to his friend, "This is bigger than a withdrawal. This is bias on full display." The college student with the phone took a step closer. His voice trembled but carried across the marble room. "You keep saying fraud, but you have not even run her name. Why? Because she is black? Because her suit is not designer enough for you?" His phone stayed raised, the red light glowing steady. The manager snapped at him, his voice cracking with fury. "Put that away! You are interfering with a federal institution." The young man did not lower his phone. Instead, he raised his chin higher. "No, I am recording injustice. There is a difference." The tension stretched like glass about to shatter. The woman in orange remained still, her hands folded over her folio, her eyes scanning the room as if she were memorizing every detail. She had learned long ago that silence makes oppressors reveal themselves fully. And here, in this sterile bank lounge, they were exposing everything. The guard stepped back half an inch, conflicted. The manager barked again, desperate now. Call security backup. We are not playing games." And as he shouted into the phone for more reinforcements, the woman in orange slowly reached into her jacket pocket, pulling out her own device. Her hand was steady, her voice calm, as she spoke into it. "Begin logging. Record every word. Activate internal protocol." Those in the room who understood power shifted uncomfortably. Something had just changed. The balance had begun to tilt. And no one, not even the furious manager, realized that the quiet command she had given was the opening move of a much larger reckoning. The phone pressed to her ear was not for show. On the other end, a crisp female voice answered without hesitation. "Protocol engaged. Incident log started. Timestamp confirmed. Continue speaking and everything will be documented." The woman in orange kept her gaze on the manager, her tone measured. "Make sure the board receives this in real time." Ugh. The manager scoffed loudly, his laugh echoing off the marble walls. "The board? You think a scam call is going to save you? Police will be here any second, and then you will be in handcuffs." He turned to the guard. "Do not just stand there. Do your job." The guard shifted, uncertain, as the lounge filled with murmurs. A man in a tailored gray suit near the corner spoke up, his voice rising over the crowd. "You keep calling her a scam, but you have not checked her credentials once. You went straight to calling the police. Why?" The manager snapped back. "Because I know her type. Fast talkers with fake cards. You give them an inch and they take millions. Not today." The words were venom, meant to sound like authority, but the undertone was clear. He was not speaking about fraud. He was speaking about her face, her presence, her skin. A middle-aged woman clutching her daughter's hand whispered to the man beside her, "This is not about policy. This is profiling. It feels ugly." The woman in orange spoke again, her voice calm but resonant. "You did not ask for proof. You did not verify my account. You saw me, and you decided I was guilty. That is the real fraud here." The college student raised his phone higher, his voice steadying. "Say it louder. Everyone needs to hear this." The room's energy shifted. What began as silent complicity was cracking. A few clients nodded. Some murmured agreement. Yet the manager only grew louder, desperate to drown out the change. "Enough. Security backup is on the way. She will not fool anyone." At that moment, the assistant's voice came again through the phone. "Confirmation complete. Documents attached. The board is monitoring live." The manager's eyes flickered, a brief shadow of doubt crossing his face. He tried to mask it with rage. "Stop pretending. You are nobody." But the woman's stillness, her steady tone, said otherwise. For the first time, the power in the room did not belong to the man shouting. It belonged to the one who had barely raised her voice at all. The bank lounge was no longer quiet. It pulsed with tension, every breath heavy, every glance sharpened. Clients who had tried to look away could not ignore it anymore. They were not watching a policy check. They were witnessing a public trial, one where guilt had been declared before evidence. The manager's voice thundered across the room. "You are not a client. You are a con artist. I said it once. I will say it again. You do not belong here." His finger jabbed toward the exit like a spear. "Leave now before the police arrive." The woman in orange did not move. She remained anchored to her seat, hands folded over her folio. Her silence spoke louder than his rage. It unsettled him because silence meant control, and control was slipping from his hands. From the back of the room, a young woman with a stroller finally raised her voice. "You did not even run her name. You just called the police. That is not security. That is discrimination." Gasps rippled. A man in a navy blazer near the espresso counter added, "I have been banking here for 10 years. I have never once seen a white client treated like this. Not once." His words landed heavy, undeniable. The manager snapped his head toward them, his eyes flashing. "Do not interfere. You are putting yourselves at risk. This woman is dangerous." The college student's phone camera caught every word. His voice, once shaky, now steadied with conviction. "She is dangerous because she is calm, because she is black. Everyone can see what this is." The guard shifted uncomfortably, torn between duty and doubt. The manager saw the hesitation and barked louder. "Do not hesitate! Detain her now!" The guard reached again, but the woman in orange raised her voice for the first time. It was not a shout. It was firm, unwavering steel. "Touch me again, and you will face consequences you cannot contain." The words hung in the air like thunder without lightning. The guard froze. His hand hovered but did not land. He stepped back a fraction, his eyes darting between her and the furious manager. For the first time, the power dynamic cracked visibly. Clients were no longer passive. Phones were raised. Murmurs were louder, angrier. The weight of injustice was now undeniable. The woman in orange turned her head slowly, her eyes sweeping the room. She let the silence hold, let the discomfort deepen. Then she said softly, "Every word you have spoken has been logged. Every insult, every threat, every lie. You will not erase this, not today." And in that moment, the bank manager's confidence faltered. His jaw clenched, his hands trembled just slightly. He had started this confrontation certain of victory. Now, for the first time, he looked uncertain of the ending. The moment cracked open like glass under pressure. The bank manager, red-faced and shaking, reached across the counter, snatching the woman's platinum card from where it rested near her folio. He held it up like a trophy for the room to see. "This is counterfeit," he shouted. His voice carried desperation, but he masked it as authority. He slammed the card down against the marble with a sharp snap. "Proof! This is stolen property, and she is a fraud. I will hand this over to the police myself." Gasps erupted across the lounge. A woman in pearls whispered, "He destroyed her card." A man in a business suit muttered, "That is not procedure, that is personal." The woman in orange did not flinch. Her eyes remained fixed on the manager, her stillness magnifying his chaos. The guard stepped forward, alarm flickering in his face. "Sir, you should not," but the manager cut him off with a roar. "Do your job! She is a thief, and she is trespassing in this institution." The college student recording the scene spoke louder now, his phone trembling in his grip. "You tore her card in half without even checking the system. Everyone can see this. This is not fraud. This is racism." The manager's lips curled into a bitter smile. "Call it what you want, but she is not leaving with stolen funds. Security will make sure of it." The woman in orange leaned forward slightly, her voice calm but edged with precision. "You just made a federal false report. When the police arrive, they will not be taking me away. They will be documenting every action you have taken here today." A hush spread across the room. Even those who had doubted her now leaned closer, sensing the balance shifting. A young mother rocked her child and whispered fiercely to no one in particular. "She gave her ID. She gave her card. He just ripped it apart in front of us. That is abuse." The manager's fury only deepened. He turned sharply to the guard, shouting so loud his voice cracked, "Call for backup! Get her out of my sight!" The guard hesitated, his eyes darting between the card fragments on the counter and the woman's unshaken calm. For the first time, he looked unsure. The woman in orange lowered her voice, steady and deliberate. "You think power comes from shouting the loudest, but power comes from truth, and truth does not need volume. It needs time." Her words settled into the marble silence. Around her, clients exchanged looks, their expressions shifting from doubt to recognition. The bank lounge was no longer just a room of money and marble. It had become a courtroom. And every witness knew they were watching not just a dispute, but an injustice unfold in real time. The woman in orange placed her phone flat on the counter, her fingertips resting lightly against it. Her eyes never left the bank manager. When she spoke, her words were low and calm, yet they carried through the entire lounge. "Carla," she said into the phone, "initiate escalation. Begin Protocol 7. Confirm that every action in this room is documented and transmitted directly to corporate compliance." The voice of her assistant came through steady, professional, unmistakably confident. "Protocol 7 activated. All cameras in the branch have been synced. Incident log is live. The compliance board has received your location and audio feed." The bank manager's laughter burst out like a weapon. "Listen to this. She thinks she has an assistant logging her lies. Ma'am, you are a con artist pretending to be powerful, but the only record here will be your arrest." He raised the torn card higher, as if its fragments could prove his authority. Several customers exchanged uneasy glances. The young man with the phone stepped forward. "She is not lying. You can hear the voice. This is bigger than you want to admit." The manager turned on him with fury. "Shut that off before I have you thrown out with her." The young man did not back down. His voice cracked but did not falter. "No, the world needs to see this." The woman in orange continued, her tone unshaken. "Carla, log the manager's words. He has accused me of theft without verification. He has destroyed my property. He has escalated this to law enforcement without evidence. Logged and time-stamped, Carla replied smoothly. Additionally, corporate has flagged his employee record. Prior complaints involving discriminatory behavior have been attached. The guard's posture stiffened. His eyes shifted to the manager. Sir, maybe we should pause. This does not look. The manager cut him off with a roar. Enough! She is manipulating all of you. She is dangerous. I will not let this bank be scammed by some woman who thinks silence makes her superior. But the silence was working against him. The stillness of the woman in orange had transformed the room. Every word he shouted now landed like proof of his prejudice, not of her guilt. A mother holding her child spoke up, her voice trembling but clear. She has not raised her voice once, and yet you look afraid of her. The marble lounge was no longer neutral ground. It was tilting toward truth. The manager did not know it, but every second he raged, every insult he hurled, was already becoming part of a record he could not erase. The woman in orange lifted her chin, her eyes steady. This is not about banking anymore. This is about dignity. And the difference between us is that I do not need to scream to prove mine. The weight of her words pressed down on the room. For the first time, the manager's voice caught in his throat. The woman in orange rose slowly from her chair. The movement was calm, deliberate, like a judge preparing to deliver a verdict. Every eye in the lounge followed her as she straightened her blazer and placed her hands firmly on the counter. She looked directly at the manager, her gaze unwavering. You called the police to arrest me. You ripped my card. You labeled me a thief without ever once checking the system. Do you want to know who I am? The room held its breath. The college student lowered his phone slightly, as if instinctively knowing this moment did not need framing. It needed witnessing. The manager scoffed, though his voice betrayed a crack. I do not care who you pretend to be. You are nobody here. The woman's voice sharpened, every syllable weighted with authority. I am not nobody. I am the majority shareholder of this bank. I am the reason this branch exists. You did not just call the police on a customer, you called them on your employer. Gasps rolled through the lounge like a wave breaking against stone. A woman at the espresso bar clutched her chest. A man whispered, She owns the bank. The guard's eyes widened. His hand fell from his radio, his authority evaporating in an instant. The manager staggered half a step back, his face draining of color. The assistant's voice rang clear from the phone on the counter. Confirmation sent. Board documentation shows her ownership stake. Internal compliance is monitoring live. The weight of the truth dropped heavy in the room. The clients who had been whispering doubts now erupted in low murmurs of shock and awe. Phones captured every angle, but no lens could capture the collapse on the manager's face. The woman in orange leaned in, her tone cutting and final. You accused me of fraud in the very bank that I own. You told me I did not belong in the house I built, and you did it in front of witnesses, in front of clients, in front of the board. The silence that followed was suffocating. The manager's lips parted, but no sound came. His authority, once absolute, was shattered in a single revelation. The woman turned her gaze to the room. Now you all know. This is what discrimination looks like. It is not hidden in whispers. It is loud, public, and shameless. And today, it has been exposed. The lounge no longer felt like a place of business. It felt like a reckoning, and the man who thought he had power now stood as nothing more than a cautionary tale, trembling under the weight of his own prejudice. The room trembled with realization. The once polished atmosphere of the bank had unraveled into chaos, but the chaos was not hers. It belonged to the manager, and now every witness saw it. The manager's hands shook as he clutched the broken fragments of the platinum card. His eyes darted around the lounge, searching for support. But the tellers would not meet his gaze. The guard stood stiff, avoiding his orders. Even the customers who had once whispered doubts now stared at him with open disgust. A woman near the corner, holding her phone high, declared, I have this all on video. The world will see how you treated her. The college student nodded fiercely, his camera never lowering. It is already streaming. People are watching this right now. The manager tried to summon his authority, but his voice cracked under the pressure. You are all being manipulated. She is lying. I do not care what she says. She does not belong in this bank. His words no longer carried weight. They collapsed into the air like a broken promise. The silence that followed was not on her shoulders. It was on his. The woman in orange stood tall, her presence unshaken. "Do you see it now?" she asked the room. "This is what unchecked power looks like. A man willing to destroy evidence, to call the police, to scream fraud, simply because my presence offends him. That is not banking. That is bigotry." Murmurs of agreement filled the air. A young father carrying his daughter muttered, "She is right. This is not about money. This is about race." The manager slammed the counter again, desperate to reassert himself. "Stop recording. Stop listening to her. She is not who she claims to be." And then, the assistant's voice cut through the noise once more, crisp and final. "Corporate verification complete. Ownership documents have been circulated to the board and to internal audit. The authority of the manager is under review." The guard looked directly at the manager, his tone low but firm. "Sir, you might want to stop talking." The weight of humiliation pressed down harder. The manager's bravado slipped, his jaw trembling as he realized the trap he had built for himself. The woman in orange placed her hand gently back on the counter, her calm restored. "This is no longer about me," she said, her voice deliberate. "This is about every person who has been silenced by arrogance and prejudice, and today, that silence ends." The room erupted in hushed applause, subtle but powerful. Even the marble walls seemed to echo with agreement. The man who had believed himself untouchable now stood cornered, not by force, but by truth, and truth, once revealed, does not retreat. The sound of hushed applause faded into a tense silence. The woman in orange did not move quickly, did not raise her voice. Instead, she pressed her palm flat against her phone and gave one clear instruction: terminate his access. Her assistant's reply came instantly, her voice crisp and unshaken. "Confirmed. Processing removal now." A sharp chime echoed from the manager's pocket. He pulled out his badge, staring as its small red light blinked steadily. He pressed it against the reader on the counter, but instead of the familiar green glow, the device emitted a harsh buzz. "Access denied." Gasps rippled through the lounge. A teller whispered, "He is locked out." Another muttered, "It just happened. Live." The manager's face drained of color. "What have you done?" His voice was no longer authoritative. It was panicked. The woman's reply was calm, each word carrying the weight of finality. "I removed you from the system. You no longer represent this bank. Your employment, your clearance, your authority, it ends today." He slammed his fist on the counter, desperation spilling out. "You cannot do this to me. I built this branch." Her gaze cut through him like steel. "You built nothing. You poisoned what was entrusted to you, and now the rot has been cut away." The guard took a step back, distancing himself from the fallen authority. Customers murmured louder, their phones raised higher. The college student's voice cracked with excitement. She just fired him in front of everyone. The manager's mouth opened, but no words came. His power had evaporated. His protests were smoke with no flame. The woman in orange turned her eyes to the tellers. "Deactivate his credentials. Ensure that he does not touch another account, another client, another piece of property that belongs to this institution." One teller hesitated, but the guard's firm nod pushed her forward. She entered commands on her terminal, and within seconds the final locks snapped shut. The system rejected him completely. The manager staggered, clutching the counter as if it could hold him up. "This is not fair," he muttered, his voice breaking. The woman's reply was quiet, but it struck harder than any shout. "Fairness is not what you gave me. Fairness is what I restore by ending your reign of prejudice." The room held its breath. Witnesses knew they had just seen something irreversible. A man who had wielded power through fear had been stripped of it with a single phone call. And now, all that remained was judgment, not from her alone, but from every eye and every camera that had captured the fall. The bank manager stood frozen, his authority gone, his badge blinking red in his trembling hand. Around him, the air was thick with judgment. The marble lounge that once felt like his domain now felt like a courtroom, and he was the one on trial. The woman in orange straightened her blazer and stepped forward, her heels clicking against the floor with precision. She stopped just short of the counter, her presence towering though she never raised her voice. "You tried to erase me with words," she said, her tone calm, deliberate. "You called me a fraud in the very bank that I own. You tried to shame me in public, hoping my silence would mean surrender. But silence is not surrender. Silence is strategy. And today, it ended with your downfall." The crowd leaned in, phones raised, recording every syllable. The college student whispered to his camera, "This is the moment. This is justice in real time." Ah. The manager shook his head violently, his voice breaking. "You cannot just walk in here and end my career. I gave my life to this institution." Her eyes met his with a finality that cut through the air. "You did not give your life. You took dignity from others. You wielded policy like a weapon, aimed at anyone who did not fit your mold. That ends here. You are finished." The assistant's voice came through the phone one last time, steady and formal. "Termination confirmed. Legal documentation has been filed. Local authorities have been notified of misconduct. Compliance Board requests your signature for final removal, madam." She tapped the screen once, signing with a steady hand. Then she looked back at the crowd. "You will not see me shouting. You will not see me begging, because justice is not about volume. It is about truth, and truth has already spoken." Applause swelled this time, no longer hesitant. Some clapped softly, others loudly, and a few even cheered. A mother lifted her daughter higher, whispering, "Remember this. This is what strength looks like." The manager, now pale and trembling, stumbled backward as security finally arrived. But instead of escorting her, their eyes locked on him. The irony was complete. He had called the police for her, but now he stood as the one being escorted out. The woman in orange gathered her folio, her movements calm and precise. She did not look back at him. She looked at the witnesses, her voice carrying a final message. "I do not need a camera to prove who I am. I am not the video. I am the result it leaves behind. And what you saw today is not just my story. It belongs to anyone who has ever been told they do not belong." The marble doors closed behind her as she walked out, leaving the echo of justice in her wake. And inside that bank, no one would ever forget the day silence turned into power.